Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight reviews for the Jared Anderson vs Jonnie Langston fight and also Guido Vianello vs Don Haynesworth. Both these fights featured on the Shakur Stevenson card in Las Vegas. So this is sort of as expected in terms of the result, but there were a few interesting things to pick over here. But we'll start with Jared Anderson versus Jonnie Langston, which was the co-main event. Relatively fun fight where Jonnie Langston did come to fight. It wasn't just a complete knockover job, but he was clearly limited, technically, but also physical fitness. He seemed to be gassing, towards the end of that first round, and I thought, oh, this doesn't bode well for him. In the end, Jared Anderson got the job done in under 3 rounds. For the most part, I thought he looked impressive. There were some really good things about the way that he fought and some of the things that he was doing in there. The jab looked good early on. He was also working the body. It was a feature of this fight. And Anderson, there was a couple of beautiful combinations. One where he went to the body and then came up with a right uppercut, and it really was some flashy stuff. It was good stuff to see. You don't often see that sort of combination. And Langston, by about the second round, clearly he was starting to fade, gets into the third round, and we actually saw Anderson switch up to the southpaw stance. That was something that he is quite adept at. We haven't really sort of seen it too much in his pro career to date, but he did switch it up. Towards the end of that third round, Langston really wasn't offering up much resistance anymore. The ref jumps in after a barrage from Anderson and after he'd bailed up Langston in one of the corners of the ring, and it was all over. So Jared Anderson advances to 4-0. We saw a few good wrinkles to his game. I mean, remember, this guy is just 20 years old. And this fight, even though it wasn't necessarily the best fight in the world, because remember, he's a 4-0 prospect, he's got to go through the levels, he's got to develop, he's a lot of raw potential right now. But you could see from that fight that Anderson, if they can polish him up, in a few years, he's going to be a problem in the heavyweight division. There were a few things you can certainly nitpick because, especially in the first round, as he was sort of treading forward, he was taking a few shots, and that was a theme right throughout the fight. But it was clear that he didn't really respect Langston's power. But defensively, he did look a little bit leaky in there, and as he sort of climbs up the levels, he's got to sort of tighten some of that up. But I think some of it came down to he wanted to go in there, he wanted to put on a performance, and he was getting clipped with a few as he was trying to get his own work away. But he said in the post-fight, actually, there was only one shot, an uppercut, that got his attention. But that was the only thing that he sort of felt from Langston that really sort of gave him any trouble. But overall, he looked good in there. Fast hands, good jab, the body punching was superb. And this was a great exercise, a profile builder for Jared Anderson. 20 years old, he's one of Top Rank's up-and-coming heavyweights. They've got 3 or 4 in their stable at the moment that they'll, at a certain level, the likes of Sonny Conto, Guido Vianello, who will come to it in a moment, where they're sort of under 10 fights working their way up. And for the most part, he looked impressive in there. And, I think this is going to leave fans asking for more. And it would have been one of these things that there would have been a number of boxing fans who either hadn't heard of Jared Anderson before or hadn't seen or heard much of him. So it was a good showcase of, his raw potential. And I think, a lot of people will be starting to be a bit higher on Jared Anderson if we can see a bit more of what we saw tonight, tighten up on the defense. And I think his stock definitely went up after this fight against Jonnie Langston. Okay, so moving to the second heavyweight fight of the night, Guido Vianello versus Don Haynesworth. This was the third fight on the bill. It was all over in under a round, so not too much to cover here, but Guido Vianello looked good for the most part. He was using that double jab early on. That was a clear Kevin Barry influence. Barry has now trained him for 3 of his 7 fights. Vianello was using movement, using the jab early on. Don Haynesworth not really able to get too much away. He did go for a jab to the body, and this is where Vianello caught up with him. He came over that left hand as it was going for Vianello's midsection, and he cracked him on the side of the head, and Don Haynesworth's legs just sort of stiffened up, and literally it was timber. He fell backwards, it was almost quite comical. Haynesworth, he does get up, he beats the count, he says to the ref, I'm okay, but the referee, Jay Nady, says, nah, that's it, all over. So not too much to really get into about what happened because, it was all over pretty lickety-split. Vianello looked good for the most part. Obviously, there has previously been questions about, was he sitting down on some of his punches? Some people have said, how much power does Guido Vianello have? Is he going to be a guy that can crack in the heavyweight division? Certainly, it was a good finish tonight. That was a good shot, good counter-punch opportunity over that jab, and it put Haynesworth away. But Haynesworth is of a certain level. This was always going to be, in my view, as I said in my prediction video, ending in a Vianello win, most likely by stoppage. And so it was. So Vianello, 1 round's worth of action. In the post-fight review, he said that he would hope to fight at least 1 or 2 more times in this top-rank summer of fights, which will be held behind closed doors. So he wants to have up to 2 fights before he ends up heading back to Italy. Remembering he's stayed in Las Vegas, he's been training there for months, he's been keeping himself in shape, and Anderson and Vianello, they did show that they were in condition here. Say, for the Langston fight, Anderson clearly the superior athlete conditioning-wise as well. Langston was gassing out early on. So overall, an easy night's work. Both these guys didn't do their stock any harm. If anything, it's gone up. I think Vianello, similar to Jared Anderson, hasn't had a lot of press before in the mainstream sort of media, or indeed a whole lot through the boxing media. Fans are starting to will become a little bit more aware of them after tonight. Good prospects to look out for, and it seems like we will see them sometime soon. What did you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.